Hello everyone, and this is Troy from Dashcam Owners Australia bringing you another dashcam review. Today we're taking a look at the Dome GS98C. Now for those of you who have seen my reviews before, I have covered the original Dome G90 series. Now think of this camera as if that original Dome G90 had an uncle and that uncle was Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is what this camera would be. You may ask, what exactly does that mean? It means it keeps all the original great features I liked about the original Dome G90s, but is much better built and has a much better sort of sturdier quality to it. The GS98C actually has an all sort of metal build, so there's a bit more weight in it. It's almost twice as heavy as the original Dome G90. In terms of reliability, we'll have to see how that plays out as a factor. Now from GearBest, this camera does come with GPS. I will cover the GPS a bit more on this later, but I did not have a lot of luck. It seemed a little bit unreliable on the model that I had, so something to bear in mind with this camera. As you've seen, it comes in a very generic box by the pictures that I've been showing you here, but that is sort of reflected by the price. Now I'll show you what's included in the box with this camera. Starting at the top left, we have the camera itself, the GPS mount, top right. Bottom left, our basic start guide, which is in fractured English as usual, our USB cable for connecting it to a computer, and our charging lead. Now I'll give you a little tour around the camera, and as you may pick up on, this does share a lot of resemblances with the original G90 in terms of layout. As you see here on the back, you've got the same button layout as well as the event recording button, all pretty much in the same spots as usual, so almost entirely the same navigation and layout as the original, just with that all metal construction. The only real difference with this one is the GPS has a wire that plugs into the top, where the Dome G90 GPS was through the charging port. And I'll give you a few shots of the GPS mount in a minute. It does look better than the original Dome G90 mount, so we'll have to see how it holds up. I didn't have any issues with this one personally, but it is the middle of winter. Summertime does tend to make these things fall off the windscreen a little bit more often, but it does look better built than the original Dome G90 mounts. And as you see there, with the GPS plugged in, you've just got that little extra wire, which is not really too much of an inconvenience. Anyway, moving on, we'll take a look at the different menus and the options with this camera. Now we'll first start off with taking a look at the different types of video resolutions for this camera. There's 1296p, 1080p at 60, 1080p at 30, a high dynamic range 1080p, 720p 60, 720p 30, and 2560 by 1080, which is cinema mode. Our image quality, superfine, fine, and normal. I'm using superfine. There's a bunch of time-lapse settings if that's your sort of thing. I personally just have that set to off. Our meter mode settings, which are center, average, and spot. I'm using center for all my videos. The anti-flicker mode, you've got auto, 60 Hz, 50 Hz. I'm just set it to automatic. Our stamp settings, so we can have date, time, and driver ID. I have all three turned on, as you'll see later. Our loop recording settings, so this is how long each clip goes for, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I have mine in 1 minute clips. ADAS, which is Advanced Driver, blah blah blah. It's essentially just your lane departure warning system. Just a fancy name for that. G-sensor settings, high, medium, low. I've got mine off. Motion detection, off and on. This will be used if you have parking mode turned on. Microphone, off and on, as usual. And there you see the parking mode option as well. I've got it turned off in my case. Now that we've covered all the recording options, we'll take a look at the actual camera options. So here we have our languages. Just scroll through them so you get a good idea of all the different languages in this camera. Of course, I'm using English. Card volume, I haven't got a card in there right now, so system mode, NTSC or PAL. Driver ID setting, I've got mine set to DCOA as always. Now we have our time setup, very simple. Won't format because I don't have a card in there. Now you can reset the camera to default settings. Basic yes and no there. Next we have our auto power off settings, which is 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes and off. Then we have our backlight off, so that's how soon the screen turns off after you start driving, 1, 3 and 5 and off. Our delay power off, so that's how soon the camera turns off once it loses power. Our GPS settings, so on and off. I have it turned on, but as I mentioned, it didn't do a very good job. Our beep sound on and off, and the version info, so your firmware. Now we'll take a look at some video footage from this camera, and I must remind you that the YouTube quality may not represent the original quality of this camera, especially because I recorded in 1296p and my video editor only outputs in 1080p max. Now here we go, early morning, Sydney, sun's rising, so we have that very bright sun shining directly into the camera's face. As we're passing these trees, the camera has to quickly adjust to brightness, darkness, and as you can see, it's doing a very nice job on that. As you can see, the footage is very sharp, and there's lots of detail in it, even with that bright sun in the background making it difficult. Now we'll take a look at another example of footage. And here we are with another daytime example. As you can see, you can make out all the license plates on those cars very easily. Good levels of detail. You really can't ask for much more from a camera from this price range, except maybe working GPS. Anyway, we'll take a look at some night footage next, and we'll give you an idea of what this camera does at night. Our first night example, as you see here, is one I try to use in pretty much all my reviews now. This is the main street of Cronulla, so we've got some good lighting from the shops. This is basically right on dark here. But as you can see, the camera still does a nice job. It can make out the license plates of all those parked vehicles. Still got a decent level of detail from the signage on the businesses around. So, when there's decent lighting around, this camera can still pull out a very good and clear image. The next video I'll show you is a much darker street with very low lighting, hardly any street lights, that sort of thing. And I'll also cut to the in-camera microphone to give you an idea of what that sounds like. Alright, here we are for the standard microphone test I do on all the cameras. Just going along a suburban street here, 50k an hour, basic lighting. Hopefully this is giving you a good idea of this camera's microphone and its nighttime ability. And now I can turn my music back up, because I hate talking. Riveting stuff there, but I hope it gave you a good indication of the nighttime ability and the microphone on this camera. Anyway, it's time to move on to my likes and dislikes with this camera, and we'll start off as usual with the likes. Now this camera had really good video quality and plenty of resolution options to suit whatever needs you might have. The sturdy build quality, like this thing just feels like it's well made. And for the price it's going at, I really don't think that can be beaten. The improved suction mount seems a bit more reliable than the original G90, but time will have to tell on that one. But the microphone on this camera also does seem like it has been improved dramatically. Now, saying that, there's a few things this camera could improve on. First being the GPS. It only worked on a few occasions out of all the footage I took. And from what I saw on GearBest, there was another person that was complaining about this, so definitely something they need to look into. And although the mount has been improved from the original Dome G90 sort of style, I do have concerns that it won't hold the extra weight of this camera, seeing it's nearly twice as heavy. But apart from that, it looks like it's a very good buy for the $100 mark. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I plan to be releasing a few more shortly, so please stay in touch and subscribe. This is Dashcam Owners Australia saying goodbye.